Welcome to part 2 of my video on Grace Kelley. We're going to find out how the charmed girl became a tragic figure, unhappy in her new life, miserable that she gave up her old life, controlled, and finally dead at the age of 52. So I'm going to read this from my page, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Dead, a little description of the wedding. To fulfill requirements of French law and Roman Catholic rules on marriage, Kelley and Renier had both a civil and a religious wedding. The 40-minute civil ceremony took place in the palace throne room of Monaco on April 18, 1956, and was broadcast across Europe. To cap the ceremony, the 142 official titles, counterparts of Renier's, that Kelley acquired in the union were formally recited. The following day, the big wedding, the church ceremony took place at Monaco's St. Nicholas Cathedral. Kelley's wedding dress, designed by MGM's Academy Award-winning designer Helen Rose, was worked on for 6 weeks by 36 seamstresses. The bridesmaids' gowns were designed by Joe Allen Hong at Neiman Marcus after Lawrence Marcus visited Monaco. The 600 guests included Hollywood stars like David Niven, whom she had an affair with, and his wife, Gloria Swanson, Ava Gardner, the crowned head, Aga Khan III. Oh, Conrad Hilton went. We know who he is. Frank Sinatra, another affair. So, the ceremony was watched by an estimated 30 million people on television. The prince and princess left the night of their 7-week Mediterranean honeymoon cruise on Renier's yacht. How nice. After their wedding, Prince Renier banned the showing of any of Grace Kelley's films within the Principality. So not only was she forbidden from making more films, but they couldn't even show her films that she had already made within the boundaries of Monaco. Grace Kelley came to regret her decision of giving up her career. I think that she had taken her career for granted, that success had come to her with really very little effort on her part. Let's face it, her face opened the doors to her success. Her face, her uncle's connection in the theater, opened the doors for her early. So basically she had taken it for granted that things would always come to her this easily. So when she gave up her career to be a princess, she struggled. Initially, she struggled because she didn't know French. This was the language she had to learn in order to do business and to live and to socialize in Monaco. They're not going to speak English to you. You're the princess of Monaco. You're going to have to speak French. She struggled with this. For 2 or 3 years, she struggled to become fluent in French. Her husband continued to see other women and to have affairs. She became isolated in the palace. She was isolated and alone with a language barrier, very far away from her home, very far away from her friends, very far away from her family. So, of course, she became depressed. She did, however, fulfill her obligation. She gave birth to 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. She had Carolyn first, and then she had her son, Albert, and then after that, several years later, she had Stephanie. The girls were notoriously ill-behaved when they became teenagers. They were just wild as March hares. I'm going to read a little bit from my page, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, Dead, on Facebook about this. Carolyn was lovely, though not as lovely as her mother, and as wild as a March hare. She led a hedonistic lifestyle of clubbing and promiscuity that both shocked and worried her mother. I don't know why the promiscuity shocked her. I mean, that's just following in her mother's footsteps. Carolyn had been married 3 times, most notably to Stefano Casagrande, with whom she seemed genuinely in love and had 3 children with. Sadly, Solano was killed in a speedboat accident just 8 years after her mother's death. He was only 30. She eventually remarried and seemed to settle down. Stephanie was giving her parents grief way before the accident that seemed to go a little crazy after her mother's death. Again, engaging in a very hedonistic, jet-setting lifestyle of promiscuity, substance abuse, and dead-end affairs. She began a relationship with her bodyguard, Daniel Duque, in 1992. On the 26th of November, she gave birth to her first son, Louis Robert Paul Duque, out of wedlock. Stephanie and Duque's second child, Pauline Grace, she named it after her mom, was born on 4th of May, 1994. The two married on July 1st, 1995 in Monaco, and were divorced on the 4th of October, 1996. Stephanie gave birth to her third illegitimate child, Camille Marie Kelley Gottlieb, on the 15th of July, 1988, at the Princess Grace Hospital Center in Monte Carlo, Monaco. The same hospital she and her mother were taken after the fatal accident that killed her mother. She didn't identify a father for this third child, but it's been rumored that Camille's father is Jean-Raymond Kataib. As her parents never married, Camille is not included in the line of succession in the Monesque throne. So, she developed an affinity for circus performers later on. Stephanie was really wild. The thing about Stephanie, it was rumored that she was arguing furiously with Grace the day they had the terrible accident. She had been arguing with her all morning over a boy that she was seeing that Grace was not approving of. And they continued this argument when they got in the car and were driving down the windy road, the same road that she drives in with Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief, that winding, hairpin, scary street. And people often ask why she was even driving. They had a chauffeur that could have driven them, but I think they wanted to continue their argument in private and not have a chauffeur listening. So, yeah, they got in and windy road, and they were arguing. Grace had been experiencing headaches all day. She had hypertension. She had gained a lot of weight. She had a terrible diet. And it was rumored that she didn't have the best health at that time. And she had been suffering from really bad headaches for a while. But that day, the headaches were very bad. And what they say happened was that she had suffered a stroke while she was trying to make a hairpin turn, and had lost control of the car, had lost consciousness, and the car had plunged over the cliff. There were rumors for years that Stephanie had been driving. I don't know if I buy that. Why would Stephanie be driving? It doesn't make sense. But I know she was arguing with her mom. And I know that Grace was not feeling it that day. And so she didn't die from the stroke, but she died from injuries in the automobile accident, severe head injuries. And she was she was still alive when they pulled her from the wreckage, but they had to take her off life support I think it was about 24 hours later. This all happened on September 13th in 1982. I remember I was at college when this happened, when we got the news that Princess Grace had died. We all thought she was going to be okay because the initial news reports coming out the day before were that she was okay, she was alive, and she'd suffered minor injuries. But that simply wasn't the case. She never regained consciousness, and she died of her injuries the following day. She didn't really die. She just never regained consciousness, and they took her off life support is what they did. So she was buried a few days later in the royal funeral. Her husband looked absolutely devastated. Her daughter, Carolyn, was crushed herself. And Stephanie couldn't even attend because she was still in the hospital. But you know who did show up at Princess Grace's funeral? Princess Diana. It was her first official event as princess. She represented the royal family. And this was special for Princess Diana because she had befriended Princess Grace when Grace came to the United Kingdom. And she had talked to Grace inside of the ladies' restroom, and she had cried on Grace's shoulder about how upset she was about Charles' infidelity and love for Camilla. And Grace had been stoic and had helped her get through this. She identified with Grace. So it was touching to see Princess Diana there, especially knowing what we know now, that Princess Diana would also die tragically in a car accident, 15 years later. So that's a sad story of Grace Kelley. She was a prince. She born into wealth, born into privilege, and lived a charmed life. But there were things that were dark inside of Grace Kelley. And she was looking for happiness in the wrong places. And she essentially threw happiness away with both hands when she married Renier to please her parents. I think she realized that, but it was too late by then. Basically, at the time of her death, her and Renier were living separate lives. She was living in an apartment in Paris most of the time, and they would come together for their children and for, royal events and that type of thing. But they were basically living separate lives. And she had been offered movie roles that she had to turn down because Renier said, no, you're not doing any more movies. You're certainly not going to do that Marnie movie with Hitchcock. You're going to be playing a crazy woman, a homicidal maniac. You're not going to be doing that. That's definitely not something the Princess of Monaco is going to be doing, okay? And I think she really regretted being so controlled. For most of her life, people told Grace Kelley what to do, and she did it. I think she got really tired of that towards the end of her life. But it's too late. She's dead at 51. So that wraps up another Tragic Hollywood Star of the Week. If you enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, do all the things. Check out my books, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Yeah. It'd be great if you really helped my algorithm out by just giving a like and maybe leaving a respectful comment below. Did you know Grace Kelley? Have you ever seen any of her movies? Let me know if you've seen her movies. I'm very interested. Let me know what you thought about my video. Let me know who you'd like to see profiled on this page. Let me know, and I will definitely consider it. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.